What's happening, everybody? It's Zach Milewski here. I'm joined with a couple of my colleagues, Hayden Cortez of National Pavement Partners, and then Ryan Laughlin. I'm extremely excited to have you on here today.
Thank you.
Man, we go way back, so this is going to be a fun one.
I agree.
You know a lot about my story throughout the years, and you know how asphalt's been in, you know, my family and in my life, and I'm excited to hear about yours. So, you know, we'll go ahead and kind of kick it off, and I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got into the industry and, you know, how you ended up to where you're at now.
Yeah, thank you, Zach. I look forward to sharing it. So I went through life liking to build things. I would say I developed a sickness, which I continue today with Lego. And just the idea of taking something and building it and following a plan and seeing the product. And so that took me into civil engineering.
Okay.
Briefly thought about architecture, and I quickly realized that they never let you outside. You know, so
yeah,
I figured civil engineering would afford me the opportunity to be in construction. And, you know, at the time when I was in school, construction management wasn't a popular degree. So my vision was I wanted to do something with design. I wanted to do something with building things, and I wanted to be in the civil community. So I studied civil engineering, went to work for, at the time, a very small company. We were just about everything in the kitchen sink, you know, whether it was putting down some gravel or building a seawall or paving a driveway, probably like most people, you know, right? I didn't start as an entrepreneur. I started as an employee. The upside of that was I had to work for everything I did. I had to learn everything along the way, you know, so I spent time in almost every role in this industry, whether it's estimating, sales, project management, scheduling, dispatch. Eventually moved myself into the management side of those things, leading the estimating, leading the engineering, facing the clients, and then ultimately, you know, running businesses.
Yeah.
And having that opportunity to take that acquired knowledge. And I've had a blessed 27 years in this industry, got to meet you at a young age.
Yeah.
Got to see your entrepreneurial climb, got to see your ups and your downs.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you know, you win or you learn.
Yep.
And we've both done both of those things.
I agree. Man, I didn't realize you had sales, estimating, dispatch, all that stuff in your repertoire. I should have, because, you know, along the way I've you know, really respected just about every facet that you know from the business standpoint. So yeah, whether it was sales, estimating, you know, cost, all that stuff, you got it, man. So that's awesome.
Zach talks a lot about like your mentorship to him at a younger age. You know, I want to hear from your perspective. What was it like working with Ryan, and what are some of the things that he taught you early on?
Well, number one, talk about, you know, servant leadership. This guy was early on the phone. So I could tell he was up early because I'd get the phone calls early if we had a phone call planned, or a late phone call on the drive home. So I know he worked his tail off. And, you know, he's one of those guys where you get on the phone with him, and I'm like, he's very articulate and well-spoken. So sometimes I'd get off the phone call, I'm like, I think I got a majority of what he said. But I'll follow up with the text message. What you meant was,
just to clarify.
Yeah. So
no, that's true. I mean, I think early on when we were working together, and even as I was helping you with different things with NPP, the conversations kind of transform. They start with a path.
Totally.
And you know, I think you and I are both really good at, as far as leadership, of asking questions to get answers.
Yeah.
Not leading people to the conclusion.
That is very true. That is something you have always done. You ask a lot of questions and kind of get people to where they need to be. That's awesome.
Which is exactly how you use that now at MPP.
Yeah.
You know, instead of just handing out answers to everybody, you teach somebody to critically think for themselves. by
asking the right questions. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I think that applies to my entire career overall as well, that, developing people is the most important thing. And, you see it a lot that you obviously want guardrails around your business. You want to protect people from going just off the road, but you have to be willing to let them learn, and you have to put the time into the people. And I think that, early on when I was working with you in the Denver market, you were doing those things. You were taking that feedback. But then, like most people that aspire to do more with their career, they make it their own.
Right.
They develop it their way.
Sure.
And I've always been very proud to see that in yourself. I've met now Hayden, you for a couple of years, and can see your rise, and it's just incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I think I talk about with Zach how blessed I am to get to even know him, because I had the opportunity. Never was growing up thinking, I'm going to be in the asphalt and concrete business one day. I'm going to make it to the top. Never thought about that. But it's crazy where the opportunity comes in. And I think Paul was talking about, you don't fall in love with the asphalt and concrete. You fall in love with the overall work that you do with the people and the challenges that you overcome. So it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun for sure.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of even the other day. I don't need to go look at equipment that we're going to buy. That's not my job.
Yeah.
That's not it at all. But our VP of operations was on vacation. There was an asset that we wanted to look at. But I got that taste and that flavor from talking to our one of our senior technicians in the shop. He's like, I'm really looking forward to spending a little bit of time with you.
Yeah.
And that means the world as a leader, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you talk about life, you talk about family, you talk about, what's going on in the world, and then you talk a little bit about equipment.
Yeah.
Right.
You get to know the people that you're working with.
And knowing your people and relating to them. It's something I took away from my time in sales, but I had to really put it on display with the business leadership, is that you need to know the first name of their children. You need to know something about their wife. You need to know something about their passion. Because otherwise it's just a business transaction, and that doesn't develop people.
No, it doesn't.
Wow.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you relate that to sales then. What made you an effective salesperson / estimator in this business, or what characteristics do you think make that?
I think that highly effective salespeople in this industry, it's about developing that relationship, but being available. So putting the time into, it starts with diagnosis, right? You have to have some level of specialization with your product.
Right.
For me, it came fairly easy with the civil construction, the civil engineering.
Yeah.
That I actually liked the product and I liked the process. But just talking, and I'm sure, Hayden, you've been on those meetings where you get on that job site and you're talking to that client, and all of a sudden you just feel like this connection building, because you're not talking about paving.
Right.
You're talking about everything but paving.
Yep.
And you end with, I'll get back to you in 3-4 days with the proposal, and we'll get you on the schedule.
Yeah.
The sale is the afterthought, because you put the time into the relationship.
Yep. And you can really know, like you said, you have that gut feeling when the clients that you do hit a home run with and you really build a connection with, when you're going to get the job. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a lot less companies that, from what we're seeing, are moving towards, getting multiple bids and the lowest bidder all the time. They're looking really for trusted partners, the relationship guys that they can have. And I always joke, it's like, I call it I got a guy for that. You know what I mean? You get your fence repaired. I got to get my fence repaired. My neighbor said, I got a guy for that. So that's what we want to be to our customers for asphalt and concrete repairs. So I totally agree with that, 100%.
I think in the broader sense of business, a lot of people use the word consultative sales. Why wouldn't you have consultative sales? Everyone has consultative sales, right? What we talk about is relationship sales. We're not looking to be a one and done. We're not talking about giving you a bid. That's estimating. We're in sales.
Yep.
And we talk about that with our teams all the time, that winning isn't getting the first deal. Winning is getting the deal the second time around, the third time around. being that repeat customer and using the whole suite of tools that you have. And people buy from people. They don't buy from companies. They buy from people.
As much as people would like to say anymore, things have changed and shifted. It is absolutely people. It's absolutely people. I like exactly, where you're going with that. It makes sense. It's what we preach too.
Yeah, and it's like people get the taste of with AI and automation and stuff like that. Everyone gets the sense that people don't want to have those interpersonal relationships anymore to do business. When I think it got to a point to where people are now reverting back. It's just like history, with haircuts and fashion trends. Like it kind of changes a little bit, but it always comes back to the core foundation. That's why like the principles will always be the same.
Yeah, right. I mean, we see all the 90s clothes coming back.
Oh, I love that.
I'm fantastic with it too, but the 90s called the sales strategy's coming back too.
Yes. It's like I haven't even had to change my wardrobe.
Hey, I have T-shirts that are 18 years old. Trust me. I'm waiting for them to come back in style.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So let's talk. So your company's out of Wisconsin.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about PLM, kind of your guys' structure, what kind of work you guys do.
Sure.
And what the heck it's like doing work in Wisconsin.
Absolutely. So the way I describe PLM is a few different ways. But the first one is we have the right crew and scope for the right job. So $500 to $500,000, it doesn't matter. We are not the company that's going to turn away an opportunity. It's about putting the right crew on the right job.
Right.
From a scope of work, we take it from the most basic preventative maintenance or reactive maintenance, a pothole, an infrared repair, a crack seal job, all the way up to repaving a Walmart. It takes the right people to do that and the right equipment, but we service really anything in the exterior pavement maintenance space. I could talk about our ideal customer. That's a different conversation.
Sure.
Everyone can be an ideal customer.
Sure.
It's just a matter of having the right client expectation.
Yeah.
I think what defines PLM is really our focus around it's a limited season. We have a 6.5, 7 month season. It's a sprint. It's just a flat out sprint. You have to respect the season. You have to put the work in. We work 12 months, but we work 6.
Right.
Yep. I think, we were just talking about this last night too, is the seasonality of it and you being up in Wisconsin and, what that does. I don't think even sometimes the clients fully grasp it of, at the end of the season, there's a whole different shift from that point. You're getting everything cleaned out, winterized. A lot of the labor is, seasonal labor that you're looking to retain and bring back. But it's like, it's basically like open season too at that point. So you got to have good culture. You got to have good culture to make sure those guys are coming back.
Yeah.
And you're bringing people back in as well too, because there's a craft to that as well. It's not just, we're paving, this size to this size, but having the right people on the right jobs like you talked about.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we don't start working till April. We spend all winter fixing our equipment. We still fix it during the year, but the whole idea is to be combat ready, to be paving season ready.
Yes.
Totally.
You rip it down, you build it back up. The seal coating season's even shorter. They start late May, they finish early October. There's just a pressure on that.
Yeah.
And then the other services we perform, and we crack sealing, seal coating, striping, your maintenance things, your patching. We have concrete crews, we have excavation crews, milling crews, paving crews. We've invested in some of the best equipment around to continue to get better. And overall, it's just a fantastic process to have 150 employees that all see the vision, that all want to continue to get better, want to be in this for the long haul.
Yeah.
To retain them, to your point, Zach. I mean, you're not substantially different than us in Denver, that employee retention is more important than the profit.
It really is.
Yep.
It really is. Especially, we're 7.5, 8 months, so we might have a little bit more time than you guys, but not much. And once it starts getting cold, you can feel it. You're like, man, you just Can't wait to get back to the next spring.
Well, and unfortunately, we plow snow.
Oh,
so we put about 40 people out with about 30 pieces of equipment, and we still plow and shovel. And
good.
And again, that's part of that employee retention also, though, is that some people want to work year round.
Yeah.
Some people don't. That's okay.
Yep.
And I really wouldn't want to have everyone work year round in our markets, because we push our team. They work 55 to 70 hours a week. I don't think that's sustainable for 52 weeks a year.
No, it's not.
No, it really isn't.
It's not. Everyone has a bandwidth, and as you always see later on in the year, or later on even in a week, the productivity taper, the work quality kind of taper. So you have to have the breaks and you have to have the rest, and it's as much as we try to squeeze, and that's where the balance is like, we sold like 695 jobs last year, and fitting that within 7 months. Oh. There are Sundays. There are going to be multiple jobs in a day. And it's like, how do you still keep everyone engaged? How often are you checking in to making sure everyone's still good and breathing? Life is still good at home for them because they're gone all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a huge...
Including us.
Including us.
Yes.
Including us.
The spouses and significant others in our industry, in construction in general, definitely, are the unsung heroes of it. And I tell my wife all the time.
They are.
I said, hey, I couldn't do what I do without you.
I'll give you one tip on that, which is take some amount of money. In my case, it was about $15,000, and make a day for the wives and the significant others.
There you go.
Invite them to a show, take them out for dinner, put them up in a hotel, show them appreciation. You want to give your employees a gift, mail it to their wife.
Right.
That's a great point.
Love that.
That is a great point. Wow.
That's amazing. One thing too that we've really have talked about too, and especially in our last sales conference, was the power of job costing and tracking kind of metrics. How long have you been job costing for, and do you think that's something that should be the standard for most companies? That's not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been doing job costs since early 2000s, probably in the third or fourth year of my career. I think at the most basic level, you have to have a red, yellow, green system. Something that says, if it's green, we don't need a lot of diagnostics on this.
Yep.
If it's yellow, maybe it bears a little bit of scrutiny, but you have to know when you hit a red light. You have to know when you have to stop what you're doing at some level and say what went wrong. Mm-hmm. Yep. And you can do that now with technology. It's a lot simpler.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember early in my career, every morning I would come in and look at the timesheets, and I would just add up the labor hours, multiply it by a certain amount of money, take my material cost, multiply that, and
figure out where you were.
And figure out where it was.
Yep.
Every good business leader can feel what's going on, but at some point you have to measure it.
Yes.
Measure it and actually know it.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely have to measure it. I picked up a lot of that stuff from you guys. What
would you say some of the biggest things that you're working on with PLM this year to improve on and get better at?
We focus the most at PLM on the customer experience. So what makes PLM strong, it comes from the people that work for it, but it comes from how we deliver the product to the customer. A lot of people want to talk about price as a big driver of sales and a big driver of business. And yeah, it leads to revenue. But everything that we do comes back to, will that customer come back next year, 2 years, 5 years from now and buy again? So big initiatives for this year are, again, leveraging technology, but is check-ins. We need to make sure that our crews are checking in on a regular basis. We're doing our pre-job huddles. We're analyzing our schedule, and we're re-communicating that back to the client. I think a lot of times we get busy, especially as we talk about this sprint mentality. And I'll say 5-10 years ago, my communication model would have been, we want to be invisible. We want to come in, get it done, and leave, and you don't have any responsibility, and you don't need to know what's going on. Right. Now we've pivoted. We want to make sure our customers know what's going on in a good way.
Yeah.
We want to confirm that we're on schedule. We want to validate the work that was done. We want to share with them progress photos.
We want to use all these tools we have, but it all comes back to the role of the foreman and the communication. And if our foremen are taking care of their employees and their job, then we can take care of our customers, and ultimately we'll satisfy our goals and vision for the business with growth and initiatives. But that communication is always the focus, and that's my big one for this year.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. It's awesome. They go from being invisible to almost being over-communicative. And, the number one complaint you hear in construction is communication. They don't know when they're going to get the proposal back, or they don't know what time they're going to show up, or they don't even know if they're going to come back and do any of the warranty work because we can't get a hold of them. So you solve that one problem, and you can have all the work that you could possibly want.
Well, that ties out to everything. It ties out to how well the traffic control is set up, and how stable is the base, and are we in the boundaries of the phase that we're supposed to be in? What happens when inevitable weather comes along? And that's why that's our big aha moment, our differentiator, is that experience. It's not that we're wholly better than our competition. We're better than most. I'll never say we're the best. That's just a level of arrogance I won't tolerate.
Sure.
Right? But I will say that if we can demonstrate that we're better than most, that's our value proposition. That's what allows us to win, and not win only on price.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
What's great.
Yeah, I'm still learning.
I know. Yes, and me too. The mind of Ryan Laughlin, we love it.
So. Yeah, thank you, Hayden. Thank you, Zach. Of course.
We appreciate you having us on, or you coming on our podcast here, and we're excited to learn a lot from you, and I hope our listeners got a lot from you like we did. So thank you, everybody. Check out PLM Asphalt and Concrete out of Wisconsin. What city in Wisconsin?
We're in Pewaukee. Let's just call it Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Mr. Ryan Laughlin, episode 2 of Paving America.